Hello and welcome to this week's incredibly fire-powered Xbox Factor podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Boomstick XL, and my God, has this been the week of weeks if you are a fan of Team Green. Now, obviously, two of the original founders of the Xbox Factor podcast are not here. Both the Welsh Gamer and Zemi Games are handling personal family business, and they will hopefully be both returning next week. But in order to help me with this unbelievable amount of Xbox news, I needed to find personalities that not only I respect, not only am I a fan of them, but people that are very active in the community and also bring a lot to the table when they are podcasting. So let's get into the introductions. First, you know him as the nastiest man on social media. He's good friends with Arnold. He's friends to all. And guess what, folks? He actually plays video games. Please welcome Noof Nukem.
Boom, oh, kaboom, Noof is in the room. This was impeccable timing, Mr. Boomstick, because I actually had the day off today, so when I got the invite, I couldn't refuse. It is good to be here, and it's also good to be here on time. And yes, it's a great time for Team Green. Xbox is green, just like boogers, and they're both my number one picks. Let's get this show on the road, shall we?
That's a typical and probable Noof Nukemism, if you will. Thanks for being here, dude. Definitely glad you are a part of today's show. And driving 100 miles an hour to get here on time, our resident Forza know-it-all who handles cars like you handle your lawnmower. Please welcome Hyena Den.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's good to be here on another show. I'm tired as usual, but we'll make do.
Well, I think that with the news that broke Monday, with what Phil Spencer and Redmond have been up to, it is a great time to be an Xbox gamer. And I think that once this show gets rolling, you're going to find the fuel to fire your passion for, of course, what we all love, and that is the Xbox brand. And last, and in no least, someone that we're welcoming into the 1,000 Club, hitting 1,000 subscribers to his incredible channel that he's been building the last few years. You know him as a sarcastic Brit. I know him as a very good friend. Please welcome the elusive gamer known as Jamie Moran.
Cheers, everyone. We've had a fantastic week of news, and it's exciting because we have a new gen approaching, but can't wait to get into the topics.
Well, thanks again, dude. I super appreciate you being here. So let's get into one that I think is going to really rile up the people who are excited about the Xbox and many of the detractors of the brand. Now, look, I'm going to say this. I think it's very fair to say that when the Xbox One X was released, it was put through the ringer by the community known as the PC Master Race. They did everything in their power to try and replicate the build of the X, and all attempts failed. The X was pound for pound the best bang for your buck, and is currently sitting as the most powerful console on the market. Now, well, thanks to an article that I pulled from the pages of PCGamer.com, new and very interesting information has surfaced that will have the entire Xbox community jumping for joy and dancing in the streets. The hot topic of discussion in the last few days has been Microsoft's confirmation that the Xbox Series X will in fact be 12 teraflops of power. But according to this article, they are suggesting that the GPU that's currently running in the Xbox Series X is faster than a GeForce RTX 2080 Super. Now, if you don't know what kind of a graphics card that is, it is top of the food chain. And I have to say that those graphic cards, even if you are lucky to find it, are probably $700+ right? Even if you can buy it used or get it from off the back of a truck, you're still paying $700. Now, Microsoft says that its next generation console, of course, the Xbox Series X, will include GPU based on AMD's second generation Radeon DNA architecture known as the RDNA2 and offer up to 12 teraflops of graphical performance. That means that the Xbox Series X GPU is twice as powerful as the Xbox One X GPU and more than 8 times faster than the Xbox One Fatback. Now, what's more interesting to us, however, is how it compares to graphic cards that you can buy for your PC. And I haven't seen the chat yet. If our resident PC Master Race person known as Enrique from the Basement Radio Arcade podcast, I think he's going to dig this. Now, here's a rundown, according to the article, of the graphic cards from both AMD and NVIDIA in terms of T-flops. The top of the list right now is the GeForce RTX 2080 Ti. That's at 13.45 teraflops. Underneath that, coming in second place, is the Radeon RX Vega 64, known as the Vega 10, sitting at 12.66 teraflops. What's crazy, what's unbelievable, and what's exciting if you're going to be buying the new Xbox Series X is that graphics card comes in at third place, sitting at, it says the Xbox Series X Navi RDNA 2, sitting at 12 teraflops. Now, underneath that is the GeForce RTX 2080 Super, sitting at 11.15 teraflops. And underneath that, in fifth place, is the Radeon RX Vega 56, sitting at 10.54 teraflops. Now, PC Gamer explains that some interesting facts that I'll read directly from the article. There are different ways at looking at this. Analyzing just raw FP32 numbers, the Xbox Series X offers up around 20% more graphical power than AMD's Radeon RX 5700 XT. It's also nipping at the heels of the 2080 Ti by 1.5 teraflops. Other factors dictate performance too, however, such as the underlying architecture, memory configurations, and so forth. Now, I have to go to, I'll start with Noof Nukem on this. Now, look, here's the thing. I'll be the first one to admit, Noof, that when it comes to trying to build my own PC or really getting into the nitty-gritty numbers and understandings of PC gaming, or even the GPU this and the CPU that, I tune into people like Dealer for that. I tune in people to Colt Eastwood because they are really like the one-stop all when it comes to understanding. So that's why I read directly from the article. But I think it's safe to assume that even if you don't have a complete grasp of exactly the inner workings of these consoles, having 12 teraflops running on RDNA 2 is going to produce the best graphics that have ever come out of a home console. After reading these show notes, after reading this article, what are your expectations for the Series X that comes out in about 8 to 9 months from today's show?
Well, they're very, very high. Boom. Let me just tell you that. They're very, very high. The numbers certainly don't lie. They are extremely impressive, definitely on paper. But we all know, and I'm not making any excuses for anyone, but we all know that the real trick is to be a very talented developer. You can have all the power in the world. It's like being a race car driver. Many of these guys at the NASCAR circuits all have very comparable cars, but there's always seems to be 2 or 3 that win most of the races, right? Yep. Because they're just better, talented drivers. We see that with the devs. You got to have a great game engine, and you got to have the right people in place who know how to use it. We know that the game industry is relatively young. We also know that, there's different A lot of new people coming into the games industry. They're trying to get used to new engines and new techniques and ways to make bigger and better graphics faster, do it cheaper, all that sort of stuff. I mean, we see that even the current generation of consoles, I mean, how far they've been pushed over the last 5 or 6 years. We've saw massive improvements in a lot of games. But then at the same time, you look at a game, you go back on the Xbox, you've got something like Rise, Son of Rome, a launch title that came out on the Xbox One, still looks, in my personal opinion, as good, if not better, than perhaps 90% of all the games out there today, with very few far exceptions in between. So that's what you call a dev maximizing performance on a much smaller, with much smaller scale. Imagine now if that game was built from the ground up using the power that's even in the Xbox One X. The thought of that staggering. So yes, but the bottom line is, the better the tools as well. We all know this is like an artist. If you got a better brush kit, you got a better canvas, and you're also very creative and know what to do with it, the sky is the limit. And then that's the scary part, is knowing that devs have the kind of power at their disposal. And again, because it's a set list of numbers, they know when they're building these console games, they build it across the board. Whereas a PC is always tricky, because PCs evolve so rapidly that they always, like I said, a lot of the times they build for higher spec and then they downgrade for the lower spec, right? But that's what I've always loved about console, right? Is you go out, you buy the machine for nearly half the price of what you would take for a comparable PC, and you get, so like I said, you're getting that PC powered performance with a lot less of the hassle and not needing a friggin' tech degree to know what you're doing with it. You know what I mean? It's kind of out of the box. It runs the way it's supposed to, technically speaking, in most cases. And I said, at a fraction of the price. But I'm excited for where this console could potentially take the industry moving forward. Like I said, the specs are amazing. Sure, people out there's some people that are very bitter. There's some people very jealous. I mean, it kind of sucks. I'm sorry for you if you went out and you spent more on just your graphics card alone than you're going to spend on the Xbox Series X, right? That's a you problem. You know, to quote one of our good friends in the podcast world. But it is the way it is. I mean, power, as I said, and I'll say it again, it's not the be all end all. It's fantastic, but again, it comes down to the devs and knowing how to use it. Like, the big thing for me coming this fall is I want to really see, and this is something I haven't seen yet, and I'm sure we will, but like when Halo Infinite drops, right? It's really the showcase title so far. It's going to launch alongside basically the Series X. I want to see, you know, if the improvements on the Series X version are enough to make me want to drop another $500, $600, $700 Canadian on this new console, or just stick with my Xbox One X. Do you know, this is the thing, right? And I think a lot of us have that same question. We already know that the X is capable of 4K, in some cases 4K 60, depending on the type of game. I don't know if that's going to be even possible with a game like Halo Infinite, but we don't know this yet. So this is the key. So let's just say the Xbox One X can do Halo Infinite at 4K 60, theoretically speaking. Let's just say. So then what's the big upgrade for the Series X? Why would I want to take the plunge to the new Microsoft? At the end of the day, that's the weird thing. They don't really care. They don't really care, because as long as you're buying the game and you're getting it either physically or through Game Pass, which I suspect about 90% of the people will get it on Game Pass, they don't really care if you've taken the plunge for the power. But if they are concerned about selling this hardware, I need to have something tangible. I need to know that, again, it's going to be well worth my money. Like, deep inside me, yes, I know it will be. I mean, because the X has been worth every penny that I've spent on it, right? But that's what I need to know. So, like I said, man, I'm not going to break down the specs too much, because I'm not a real tech guru. I'm fairly knowledgeable with gaming, but that's not my forte. I'll leave it the rest of the panel to jump in on this now, but I'm pretty freaking excited, man. That was an amazing announcement with Microsoft. I mean, we thought they'd kind of leave that for the E3, but here we are. They're getting this out of the way, which leads me to believe that they've got a massive and big E3 plan for us, which probably the only thing we'll know is the launch date and the price for E3, which is what I'm expecting. And then the rest of the focus is purely on the games. And let me tell you, you are a dumbass if you think that Microsoft will not bring it. Over the course of the next, between the next 3 years, we're going to see some real kick-ass games. I promise you that.
I mean, listen, I'm going to say this. I am still going to stand on my pedestal, if you will, and still bang the drum that the April event is happening. And the reason why I think it's going to happen is I think because they need to get a lot of the hardware stuff out of the way. E3, I'm expecting, is going to be so overloaded with games. And I'm talking about stuff that starts and stops with Microsoft being at the focus. Now, obviously, with Sony not being there, with Nintendo doing their Treehouse event, and I take nothing away from Nintendo because I actually look forward to their Treehouse event, there are a lot of people that, or more so, the world will be watching because it's a console launch year. So Microsoft needs to really bring it. Now, I have a feeling, a very strong suspicion, without saying that I have any kind of connections to Microsoft, that they're either going to open the show with Fable or close the show with Fable, and switch, either a Perfect Dark or a Halo. The bookends for this conference that's going to be 2+ hours are going to be show-stopping news that's going to break the internet. And in between these two bookends, you're going to have the Halo Infinite gameplay. You're going to have Senua's Saga gameplay. You're going to have possibly the announcement of Forza Motorsport 8 or Horizon 5 confirmed as a launch title for the Series X. But, I want to go to Jamie Moran. Now, Jamie, as we know, this system is being powered by the RDNA 2. What's really interesting is that the Navi GPU from AMD is going to potentially, because it's Navi, even increase the power past the 12 teraflops. And I've heard that from Digital Foundry. Like, I'm not just talking out of my ass on that. I actually, I'll link it in the show notes. Their video that they did, I think it was Monday. It was actually fantastic. They broke down everything that Phil Spencer talked about in that blog that literally shut down the internet. And he himself has said that the confirmation of the 12 teraflops with the with the RDNA 2 and the Navi GPU has the potential to raise those specs even higher depending on their use. My question to you, as an Xbox fan who has seen the lowest of the low going back all the way to 2013, and really the brand being on the highest of the high, if you hearken back to Monday at about 9 a.m., I mean, talk about a turnaround. When you heard the confirmation of the 12 T-flops, when you're hearing that the PCGamer.com, which is no slouch, this is a legitimate website that deals in PC, are saying that out of a list that goes from 1 to 5, the Xbox Series X specs are coming in at number 3, and they're nipping at the heels at the number 2 place. How excited are you for this behemoth of a console we're going to be getting this year?
Oh, I'm excited because we started this generation being told from everyone, and I'm not just going to say the media, but literally everyone who didn't own an Xbox was telling everyone that want an Xbox that, you should only care about power and resolution. Whenever a game was announced, the first thing journalists would ask would be about resolution before they talk about gameplay or what even genre the game is. When Vice was showing off, we were asked, or should I say the journalists were asking, what's the resolution? We had this for like 3 years. And then with the Xbox One X, I noticed that this shift in everyone in the Xbox community being excited because, we're going to get this powerful Xbox, and everyone at the time was telling me that it was going to be over $700, and look how that turned out. Then I was told that Red Dead Redemption 2, games like that will never be 4K on an Xbox One X, and look how that turned out. Same with Metro Exodus. So with this new Xbox, we start a new generation from the get-go with a super powerful console. We don't have to worry about frame rates or resolution. That isn't going to be an issue. This is going to be the first generation, obviously, in 7 years where we get to actually enjoy the launch. The Xbox One launch, it wasn't fun. It wasn't.
No.
Like playing the games, yeah, it was fun, but like talking about it online, you always attacked. Journalists were always making fun of it. You had journalists said that they only owned an Xbox One to watch media, which technically makes no sense. It was an awful time. But this year, even though it's a super powerful console, we're going into this new generation being able to enjoy it, being able to enjoy the games. You know, we've seen some games so far. We've got these specs, and when the specs were dropped, I was in the middle of a supermarket. I nearly dropped my phone. I was like, "What's all these emojis?"
I love it. That's great.
Like I was talking to someone. I was scrolling down Twitter, and I noticed like the official Xbox Twitter. I'm like, "What?" I was like, "Okay, I'm running home." But like I was shocked because like Microsoft did this out of nowhere, and as I said in my last video, like Microsoft and the entire industry is very predictable when it comes to announcements. And Microsoft they've been doing something different. They came out and showed the box at the Game Awards. Phil Spencer randomly put his profile picture as the chip with 8K on it, and then on a random Monday or whatever, they dropped the specs on Twitter without an announcement or tease. Like that's the Microsoft I want to see. And with with the power we're gonna have going to the next generation, I think we can in for some good stuff. Like Noof was saying, like what are we gonna get with Xbox One X on Halo? We're gonna get 4K 60. Well, what are we getting on Infinite? And that's a good question. A lot of people are gonna be asking that. A few million people are gonna be asking that. And I think it's gonna be things like ray tracing and stuff. But I'm happy with the specs because I look at these and I don't see us needing to buy a mid-gen refresh. And I think it's pretty exciting because, like, again, like we get to enjoy this coming generation, even though there are still some pathetic trolls online.
I mean, look, let me just say this. First of all, as we cross 225 people watching the show already, which is absolutely incredible, I have to thank D Diaz 219 with the outstanding, very generous $5 super chat. He says, "To the best in the business, Mr. Boomstick XL." Well, thank you, my friend. I definitely appreciate the generosity, but of course, the compliment as well. I'm going to say this. There has been, for an Xbox fan, we take from me, for instance, I'm not going to sit here and say I put my head in my hands after 2013 because I enjoyed the Xbox One for what it was. Now, yes, was it underpowered? Sure. Did they put Connect and TV at the forefront instead of gaming? Sure. Did we have the wrong management in place? Absolutely. Changes came in post 2017 when Phil Spencer was promoted. Post E3 2018, like I speak about all the time, is a clear turning point for the brand. So I want to go to Hyena Den. Now, obviously, the power, Hyena, of the Xbox Series X is going to be vastly different from the prior generations. And for console gamers like myself, it's going to be a leap in power unlike anything I personally has ever experienced. Now, I'm going to say this. For the PC Master Race, who we have several in the chat today, who have top tier rigs that range from mid-range to high octane setups, may not be as impressed. With that said, though, the price differential, which again, we're only speculating, right? Remember, we're only speculating because I am still in the belief that this console is going to release at 500. Now, obviously, we saw the Bloomberg report talk about Sony's PS5 costing $470 to produce. We saw in the same report that it was rumored that it was costing, and I don't know how it's a $10 difference. I guess maybe because they're buying so many chips over Sony that they're getting the price really low, that the Series X costs $480. Now, if you take into packaging, marketing, shipping these consoles, parts going up, it would probably just be a hair over $500. And I think that Microsoft financially is in a position where even if they were losing $15, $20, maybe $30 per unit, they could make that money back through services like Xbox Game Pass, which just got confirmed. It doubled its numbers. We know that Xbox Live has a ridiculous amount of users that people are paying monthly. So they could, on the back end, make it on software and services. So I don't see it being more than $499 because of the quote from Phil Spencer, who I've said this on the show numerous times. He said this. that the Xbox Series X will not be out of position in price and power compared to the PlayStation 5. And right now, they have positioned themselves in a good way. But for you, when you hear, Hyena, the power that's being confirmed by a magazine that's PC based, and you hear that that this console is confirmed at 12 teraflops, what are your personal excitement levels and so the expectations for this monster that's releasing later this year?
Well, one of the things that I like to think about with next generation as a whole is when you think of the on the CPU side, besides or not just with the Xbox Series X and Lockhart, but with the PS5 as well, is it gives developers one less reason to say, we weren't able to achieve 60 frames per second on our games. They literally have less of a reason to do so now. And if developers are found doing so, people have every right to get pissed off at them because, like I said before, there's no reason not to be. If you're trying to target resolution and graphics over everything else, which I do believe some developers out there are going to still do that. It's one of those things where it's like that's kind of strange how you're given all this power and it's going to one thing and one thing only. That sort of thing is definitely something to look out for with developers, and I just really hope that some of their heads are in the right space, because I think we need to go back to a generation where performance was first and foremost what developers pushed, and that was during the NES era. There was a lot of games running at 60 frames a second. In somewhere down the line, we kind of missed that. There were not many during the original Xbox, PS2, and GameCube era. The 360 and PS3 had some, and then it just felt like over the generations we kept straying further from that to achieve better graphics. So with this generation coming up, there is no reason whatsoever. We already know the story about how the CPU cores and all of the current gen consoles right now, the consoles came out in 2013, but the CPU cores in that are from 2011. People,
they were
2 years outdated when they came out. So, and that was a problem first and foremost. When you look at the hardware that's being put in the Xbox Series X, this stuff isn't even out yet. So that's a step in the right direction. With the Xbox 360 and PS3, when those consoles released, you could not find a computer on the market that was like that. Not for that price, not even close. So we're kind of getting back to that sort of hardware standard for consoles where stuff's not being outdated the moment they release, which is very good. But going back to like the whole topic with what was it? PC World, PC Magazine.
Yeah. PCgamer.com.
Gotcha. Okay. So yeah, they did an article which I know upset a lot of people on the internet. This happened with the Xbox One X. I remember PC World also did an article about this when they're talking about Project Scorpio during E3, and the next year they did the full-blown specs article and whatnot. And back then they even said this is better than an RX 480, a GTX 1060, and it's comparable to a 1070. And then back then that also made people upset. And I think people should understand that when somebody says the GPU in the Series X is comparable to a 2080 Super. Comparable does not mean
beating.
It's going to be exactly.
Yes.
It doesn't mean beating. It doesn't mean smashing. It doesn't mean any of that. Comparable means in certain scenarios it can be on par with, and there's nothing wrong with that. I like to go back to the example of the Xbox One X and the RX 580 and 1060. Digital Foundry did a video on both of those cards running like-for-like comparisons with the One X on Far Cry 5. And what happened was, in Far Cry 5 at 4K, with those cards running at 4K, the 1060 and the 580 buckled because they lack the bandwidth that the Xbox One X has. In that comparison, the One X is comparable to the 1060 and 580, and there's other examples out there as well. So saying something is comparable to a 2080 Super does not mean, like, people need to pump their brakes and just relax. There's nothing to be afraid of. If anything, people should be excited whether you're on console or PC, because this, like I said before, we're going back to a hardware era where stuff isn't outdated the moment it releases, which in turn helps your PC components. It helps the stuff in consoles, and it's just a turning cycle. It's good for everybody. So people really shouldn't be, flipping out about any of this stuff. Another thing that I wanted to note, is so when Phil Spencer did this article Monday morning, it was kind of funny to read because he was kind of underselling the GPU performance in the Series X, and I say that because I don't mean, maybe underselling is the wrong word, but so for most people to understand, teraflops and all of that, he trying to put it in the right mindset of a casual gamer, and most people see it being, well, the Series X is twice as powerful as the One X. 6 times 2 is 12, but in that sense, he's kind of underselling it, because if you think about it, we've already heard this before, right? The Series X is RDNA 2.0. which is 1.25 times more powerful than GCN per watt, and GCN is what the One X is. So if you think about it in those terms, it's closer to 2.5 times more powerful than the One X, which is just crazy to even think about. It really is mind-boggling. Like, I was talking to my friend about this either yesterday morning or the day before that, talking to him about how this you're getting performance in something that is presumably $499, which I agree with you. I do absolutely think it's going to be $499. I think the bill of materials is higher than that. I think if they wanted to make a $70-$80 profit on it and sell it for $600, they would. But like I've said before, Lockhart, I think, is the most interesting out of all of these consoles, because that device is pure profit and nothing else. As far as the leaks are concerned, no disk drive, which means it's all going to be digital. So developers know, and they know, they're making most of their profit back on that anyways, and there's Game Pass and so on and so forth. So I don't know, it's really interesting to think about as a whole. But when you're thinking of 12 teraflops, RDNA 2, you have the new 3rd generation Ryzen cores in it, brand new SSD. We don't know anything about the bandwidth or clock speeds or anything like that, but all of those are going to come within the next 2 months.
I think what Phil Spencer is probably going to do is come out at least once every couple of weeks with more specs until all of the specs are officially out. I think that every time he gets up there and starts talking Xbox Series X, the mind share completely deepens for the Xbox brand. And again, we have to remember. You have to remember what I'm saying here before I get destroyed in the comments from the once the show ends. Is that no one is taking a shit on Sony's PlayStation 5?
Absolutely not. No.
But with little to no information provided by the market leader, that only goes so far. I mean, I have an article that I pulled, and I'm researching right now about how the community on Reset Era and the 4chan forums and a few of the other ones are starting to become very vocal with frustration.
Right. And
because Sony's doing that.
And I think to put this into perspective for some people, the team at Microsoft have already stated this as well, because they knew people were going to comment about this with, well, teraflop count isn't the only thing, and they're absolutely right. It goes beyond the teraflop count. You have to have all of your components in your system working in unison. You need to have the hardware and the software working together. And I think they have all of that down lock and key. And for a lot of people saying, well, they re-revealed the specs again on Twitter. And they haven't said, they're the world's more they haven't said it's the world's most powerful console. So is there hope for the PlayStation 5? And I think people should really understand that with that GitHub leak where they were talking about it being 12 teraflops RDNA 2.0, that GitHub leak is becoming
legit, dude. That is a legit leak, man. Yes,
is becoming very strikingly real very quickly. And it also noted that the Series X's SoC is 56 CUs. Here's the thing. If that GitHub leak is correct, which it has been so far, that kind of points to the GitHub leak for the PlayStation 5 as well.
Yes, great
because
point.
in that same leak, it said that the PlayStation 5's GPU was 36 CUs. And I'm going to try and explain this in a very, very simple way. So people are saying, well, they haven't said the Series X is the most powerful, so could it be more than 12? Can the PS5 be more than 12 teraflops? Not at 36 CUs. And the reason why I'm saying this is they're saying that the PlayStation 5 is already clocked at 2 gigahertz and it's already having problems with cooling, and the dev kits especially are loud
ultra loud
at 2 gigahertz. 36 CUs times 2 gigahertz is 9.24 teraflops. If you're trying to reach that 12 teraflop count at 36 CUs, you're looking at something like 2,600 megahertz. 2.6 gigahertz in a console, your system's going to fry. Okay, it defies the law of thermodynamics. It's not possible. Period. But besides that, all of that, Sony themselves are presumably trying to target that sweet spot of $399. Now, we've already heard that, the BOM, the bill of materials and stuff is somewhere around the $450 to $470 range. So that they're having some, they're in a weird, rock and a hard place, right? They're going to deliver a console that they can with the materials they can in the best price range that makes sense for them. This idea of just because the PlayStation 5 can't hit the same number that the Series X does not mean it's going to be a bad console in any way, shape, or form. Like Noof has said, there are very, very talented people over there at SIE. And they do wonderful things with their games. Now, a lot of that obviously has to do with how long their games take to make, but they are very talented people there nonetheless. For people out there hoping for it to be 12, I'm sorry, but with 36 CUs, it's thermally not possible. You're still going to get a great system. Both camps are going to get great systems. I think people need to relax on all sides. That includes PC gamers as well, because I see people freaking out over there, and I don't understand why. To cut it short, everything that's happening with this system is going to translate to the PlayStation 5 and PC hardware as well. And the last thing I actually want to say on this, and I almost completely forgot it, is I think people are really underestimating how important variable rate shading actually is.
Oh, yes.
And I've already, the last time I was on, I already talked about it for all of you guys. But it's one of those things where it helps you in scenarios where, like, if you look at something like I'm trying to think of a random game. Any game that has telegraph poles and there's power lines running up and down it. You're not going to be in any sort of scenario where you need to see the detail on those power lines, do you? Not really. Not in most scenarios. But what variable rate shading does is it siphons off resources and can move them to another place, another object, whatever that might be. It can be a person, it could be a car, it could be something right in your peripheral vision that you're going to be fixated on. All of those resources moving to that can help give you a better visual per frame, outside of things you wouldn't necessarily need it on. I've already used that example on cars. Because that's what I know best.
Mm-hmm.
If you're looking outside of the cockpit of a car, you're never going to see the inside of it. So why waste resources on something you're never going to see? I do ask people to definitely check out videos of this stuff. There's videos for NVIDIA's GPUs messing around with variable rate shading. It's really striking stuff. That in conjunction with something like direct ML, machine learning, you're looking at overhead that, again, it gives developers zero reason to not target 60 frames for their games. There's just zero reason at this point. And I know I'm being super long-winded right now. I whenever I talk about something, I always write stuff down so I know what to say, so I don't sound like a mumbling idiot. But
well, look, let me just say this, dude. First of all, I want to applaud you for having the unbelievable knowledge that you just shared. And the one thing that we have talked about privately, anyone that's been on my show understands that there is no time limit for how long you're going to talk. You come onto this show and you have something to say, and it takes 11 minutes. You're going to speak for 11 minutes. There's no rushing. So I have to say that the knowledge that you just dropped, especially on someone like me. I've been gaming for a very long time. I do not have those kind of technical skills, but the way that you broke it down was very understandable. And I think that even if you're just a console guy like myself, who simply wants to put the box underneath the TV, sit on the couch, and play his or her games, the way that you broke it down was very, very fluent and and retainable, even if you're not one of the biggest tech gurus in gaming. So thank you for that, dude.
And let me just say, and I'll reiterate this again, though, power is great. But you know what? If power really mattered so much, if it was the be-all, end-all, how in the hell would anyone explain how the Switch has been so successful?
Yeah, no, it's called exclusive games. It's called quality content.
Quality content. Yeah. And I'd say most Switch owners, I mean, outside of the people that own the Xbox One X and stuff like that, as your secondary console or console to take on the road, like I would say like your 80% of people that go in and buy a Switch, especially if they're buying it with the intent of it being the primary console, most of those people have no idea what's under the hood, how it runs. They just know they hook it up to the TV and it plays some great games. And at the end of the day, that's the bottom line. But I totally, like I said, you definitely knocking it out of the park there with the tech stuff, man, because, at the end of the day, it's going to come down to the bells and whistles, right? It's how well, like I said, the shaders, the texture mapping, how well they can implement the ray tracing, just like we saw how some games that use HDR coloring, definitely came alive, definitely look a lot better. And then there's some that just looked absolutely terrible with it because it wasn't implemented properly at certainly at the hardware level. They're trying to do it, like I said, fake it, so to speak. But no, definitely some great tech knowledge on that bit, man. That's all I'm just going to say. Like I said, I still want the power. I think we all do. You want to know you got a capable console, but it's not the be all end all.
Well, actually, I think, sorry to cut you off.
That's right. Keep going.
I was going to say, you bring up a great point of ray tracing. I think a lot of people have this misconception in the community that when they hear consoles are going to have ray tracing now, that we're all going to get 12 FPS games because of it, because it's a side effect of ray tracing. And I think people are going at it the wrong way, where they think the ray tracing that we have now is the ray tracing we're going to have in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years down the line. Because if you look at something like, God, I don't even like dynamic resolution scaling, that's something that's been worked on since it's been over a decade and a half now. We saw it commonly during the Xbox 360 and PS3 era, and now you see where it's at now, where it's more sophisticated than ever before. Ray tracing that you see in the NVIDIA Turing cards, it's not going to be utilized the same way. There is more overhead. in some of the techniques that they're using with DirectX ray tracing. There's a lot of things that they're doing where it's not going to be this frames per second monster that everybody's fearing. And furthermore, to that point is, it doesn't necessarily have to be to the same extent of quality of what NVIDIA is doing with their ray tracing either. Like I've said before, there's so much that your eye can perceive at a granular pixel by pixel level that why waste resources on what your eye can't even see? And I mean that by a pixel by pixel level, not an entire frame. So ray tracing that we know today isn't even going to be ray tracing that we see a year from now, and it really isn't going to be this frames per second monster that people are fearing in the community. It could be so much more than that, and you have actual RT cores taking care of that. You have great things such as they're definitely going to be utilizing temporal reconstruction and dynamic resolution scaling, all in conjunction with this, to create an image that saves on resources, but you're still getting your bells and whistles that you want. It's not going to be something that's going to completely tank your hardware and turn it into a slideshow.
Well, listen, again, the fact that you can be so technically, your technical prowess is not to be believed, and I honestly cannot thank you enough for sharing that. But I have to catch up on some of the super chats because I really feel horrendously guilty if I miss one. It really bothers me. Spider-Man drops a $5 super chat, and he says this: the PS5, according to rumors, will either be 9.2 teraflops or 13 teraflops. I'd bet it's closer to 9.2. Sony wants affordable console. You can't have that at 13 teraflops, and I agree with there. Gotham Guy, a very good friend of mine and a very good friend of the community, drops a $5 super chat, and he says this: I'm excited for the specs of the Series X. I'm hoping that $499 will be the price, but I will be using my 1X for trade-in, so I'm covered either way. That's a great point. I have to, okay, let me just scroll down. Oh my God, the super chat is, the chat is really flying. We have Chaos Mite with the outstanding generosity of $10. He says, shout out to Boom and his casts. Hit that like button. Thank you for being here. Do really appreciate it. And we have a new member to, of course, the Double Barrel Gaming, Michael Churchello. And I know I said it wrong, and I said it right. The Churchello. Thank you. My God, I'm such an idiot. Dude, thank you so much for becoming a channel member. That is very kind of you. I super, super appreciate that. And as we welcome in 330 people watching today's show, I want to move on to the next topic. And you can see by the title, we're going to be talking about some Halo goodness. Now, obviously, what the question is, what are we going to be talking about when you talk about Halo? Well, let me bring up a nice picture of Master Chief. Thanks to our good friends at seasonedgaming.com. Now, I happened to meet these two fine gentlemen at last year's E3, became really good friends with them, and will be attending E3 one more time this year with them. They have an amazing website. They are incredible community members. Well, they ran a story, a new report that suggests Halo Infinite will not only have never before used vehicles, weapons, but also characters, new and old, returning to the Halo universe. Now, this report comes from the following week that they ran a story. This is, of course, a seasoned game, and ran a story the following week that the Halo assault rifle from Halo 5, known as the MA5, has been changed. And what changes we don't know, but according to the Toy Fair, which has been running in New York City from February 22nd, 2020 through the 25th. And as we know, 343 Industries has teamed up with Mega Bloks for Halo building sets in the past, and that partnership continues with the display of Halo Infinite play sets that include a Warthog, a Mongoose, an awesome-looking Pelican, and a water vehicles suggesting that there will be boats, armored boats with a shit ton of weapons in Halo Infinite, opening up an entirely new way to play. Now, as you know, there are now leaks on those secret characters, vehicles, and plots. And unfortunately, those are going to be outed because when you work with a toy manufacturer, the designs and the characters that are going to be in these toys get put, the information gets sent to these manufacturers a year, sometimes 18 months before the toys come out, so they can build them. Now, in this, a simple change to a very famous weapon that I was talking about was, of course, the MA5, but that's not actually the biggest part of today's. Besides talking about Halo Infinite, that's actually not what's really interesting. Now, I'm going to bring up a picture, and let me get to it, because this is where it gets really interesting. You see the picture I brought up right now? This is for Halo Infinite's cosplay helmets line. And there's 3 types of helmets, as you can see on the picture here. It indicates that not only are you going to get, the standard Master Chief helmet, but if you look on to the left, there's a blue helmet there. Now, that very well could be a redesigned helmet for Locke, if he does make an appearance, which I imagine he will. But it's the one on the right that really has piqued my personal interest. As you can see, that particular helmet was worn by Sarah Palmer, who was on the cover art for the twin stick shooter known as Halo Spartan Assault that released way back in 2013. Now, at this point, we can only speculate what the Slipspace engine is going to do for the aging franchise, but getting more information like new vehicles, updated weapons, and the possibility of additional characters coming to the Halo universe that are either going to be playable or NPCs has me super stoked. But besides talking about the toy fair, besides speculating on the new vehicles, the new weapons, and the potential of new characters, I, for one, and I don't know, again, I'm not sure if I'm going to get booed for this. I, for one, are hoping for a revelation in the Halo franchise in the size and scope of what the Coalition did for Gears 5. Now, there are going to be people in the chat, they're going to be detractors, say, just a second, Boom. I didn't like all that open world shenanigans in Gears 5. It ruined my Gears. I didn't like my peanut butter in that chocolate. Take it away. Well, this is where you're going to boo me. I have to say this. Let me rephrase that. I need Halo to change. The corridor shooter that we've been playing for the last decade or so is just that. It's an old way of playing. And with the Slipspace engine, with the $500 million invested into this new engine that is probably going to be used by other first-party Microsoft studios, the open world Halo experience, I think, is a must, only because it offers exploration, sights never seen before, and a great way to expand the story through future DLC that offers insight into the Master Chief in a way that we've never seen before, and the potential of using other Spartans that might be new to the Halo universe. Now, Noof Nukem, I want to get your opinion on this. Now, the question that I have for the chat, and of course my astounding panel, is I think it's an easy question, though I think that you're going to have a very complex way of explaining the answer. Now, we kind of figured we're going to get new vehicles, right? I think that's safe to assume that there's going to be new vehicles. There's probably going to be new weapons. I hope that they are, because my God, they need to upgrade the weapons. And we're probably going to get new characters, which I think would be great for the Halo universe. As long as they don't take the ability of me using Chief away, I'm okay with it. But from what you have seen so far, what are your personal expectations, but more importantly, what way do you want to see Halo change for your gaming the way that you game, Noof.
Well, bro, just before I answer that question, I'll let you catch up with your super chat because I think there's been a few more dropped in
That
here.
actually
So I'll let you
has.
catch up with that, bro, before
Okay, let me catch up to them. We have Smuzz246. Hey, dude, thank you so much for being here. He drops a $5 super chat and says this: thanks, Boom and Panel. I have learned more about the console specs today than the last 6 months combined. Great show. Yeah, having you, Hyena, was a real treat, dude. So thank you for that. And Sovereign Cognito drops a $20. Man, that's very generous of you. Thank you. That he says, I tried to tell her babe, believe me, she don't listen. Oh, hold up. You know what, Boom? Great show, my man. Okay, babe, where was I? Oh, yeah. She can't stop listening to Noof Nukem. She says something about being moist. and Mr. Tushy drops a $2 super chat. Hey, dude, thank you for your generosity, of course, but thank you for being here. He says, Boom, please give us a Battletoads for Xbox 448. Listen, I'm going to be honest with you. I know a lot of people are shitting on that game. I'm excited for it because I remember playing it on the Super NES, and it was hard as hell. And I cannot wait for it. I got a chance to play it at E3 last year, and I died so many times, but it really was a lot of fun. But Noof, why don't you answer that? I mean, like, for obviously, this is Microsoft's flagship title. It is also the only Halo outside of the OG Xbox Combat Evolved Halo that launched with the console. So to say that this is important is a big deal. But for you, do you want to see changes on the level possibly bigger than we saw in Gears 5?
Well, first off, Sovereign, I like your super chat. Let me just tell you, man, if your wife listens to my voice, if it helps with your love life and relationships and all, then I'll keep talking, okay? Just to answer your question, look, Halo is in a very precarious position. I'm going to put it up there, not quite on the same level, but sort of in the same categories like Star Wars, where it's nearly impossible to please your fans because for everybody that you please with new changes, you piss off another group because it's changed too much and it's not what they remember growing up, blah, 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 right? So the state that the pressure on any franchise, I don't know if it's ever been bigger than what it's been for the team at 343 right now. And I do not envy them in their positions because there was a lot riding on this franchise. I mean,
I think you're botting actually a little bit, Noof. I'm not sure if you want to back out and come back in. All right, you know what? We'll come back to Noof because obviously I think he botted out for a second. We'll have him back in here. Let me go to Jamie. Jamie Moran, obviously being a big Xbox fan, I don't think you can mention Xbox without talking about the Master Chief, right? I mean, I think it's synonymous, and that goes the same thing when you talk about Nintendo. You think Mario. When you talk about Sony's PlayStation, you probably think about Uncharted, or you think about God of War or Kratos. I mean, you can go down the list of heroes
could have
for
been
that
graphically
brand.
better.
But, yes.
Graphically, it could have been better. It was short. The story was convoluted and was kind of confusing. The narrative with Locke, while it was kind of cool, it could have been DLC. It just kind of took the franchise off the rails a little bit. Like I said, so it became a bunch of things to a lot of people. Like I said, for everybody that liked it, there was somebody that didn't like it. I suspect it's still going to be the same with this. But like based on these these semi-leak, I guess, from all these mega constructs, these block sets and different things. If there's definitely one thing that Halo is stagnated with is having a little bit more variety in its series. I mean, it's always kind of been in space. We've been stuck in tight quarters.
Yes.
The enemies have sort of one thing. When Halo first came out, the enemies alone were very unique. The AI, of the Covenant elites and different things was definitely different than we'd been used to. They were actually more intelligent. They dodged. They made you work for your shots. It wasn't just like a lot of modern shooters where guys kind of run out in front of you and it feels like a shooting gallery. Halo kind of made you work for your kills, and and then they changed how Master Chief operated. They went from that, getting life packs to having the timed suit regeneration and stuff like that, which I'm okay with. I never liked the life pack thing. I kind of got a lot of games that do the life stuff. Did I knock out or something for a second?
Yeah, you did for about a minute.
Oh, okay. Because I saw a spinning wheel on my screen, so I'm thinking my connection might have got bad. Sorry about that, guys.
That's okay. That's what happens.
But like I said, I don't try to ramble on here, but I like where they're going. I mean, having the hover boats and different vehicles, different dynamics, different ways to play is always good. I've always said Halo's got to get back to going strong on the story is first and foremost, because we know the gameplay. The gameplay is something that's always been consistent with Halo. Like from Halo 1 to Halo 5, they've always had some of the best shooting and gameplay mechanics in any game out there. They're very tight. They're fantastic. The game is pretty easy to pick up and play. The multiplayer is kind of easy to pick up and play, but yet takes time to master. And you see that when you go into multiplayer, the kind of guys that you play that play it religiously take you to town, and you're like, oh, they got to be cheating. No, a lot of these guys, frankly, are just damn good.
Yeah.
When you get to the point where you can just headshot people with no scoping on a sniper rifle, your Halo skills are well up there, let me tell you. But yeah, like the series definitely needs a shot in the arm. I mean, some people are already complaining to Master Chief. His look is bulkier. He looks more tank-like based on the early trailers. That he's kind of going back to the original Chief look from the original games. Now, personally, I'm not a big fan. I kind of like the way he looks in Halo 5, Halo 4, with more of a that slimmer, more athletic aesthetic. I suppose the suit looks a little bit mobile, whereas the older games he was like fatter, chunkier, and did kind of look and feel a bit like a tank. It depends on which way you're going for. At the end of the day, that's kind of irrelevant. The way, what kind of suit of armor he wears is really irrelevant. I just want, like I said, a great story, and we need a great enemy. We need somebody, like I said, that's up on the level of Atriox.
Yeah, so I think he's going to be in the game, dude. They haven't confirmed it yet, but I think that this is going to follow in the footsteps of the RTS, and I think that you absolutely, because Atriox is scary. You know what I'm saying? He's menacing, and that's exactly what you need for this new. I guess it's a bit of a Halo rebirth, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. Everybody knows that the strength of any game is like any superhero. Like the superhero is magnified by the way a villain is, right? Like Batman is always better when he's with the Joker.
Yes.
Spider-Man is great when he goes up against someone like Doc Ock, or one of his real, the people that people identify with. Like, again, strength of a villain is large, whether it's in the movies or it's in the games. And you don't always have to kill off a villain either. And this is a misconception. Like, you get a villain and you got to kill him off in a game. Like, it's got to be completed. It's got to be done. Well, what about a villain? That the story drags out a little bit. It goes through a series where you see evolution, you see some conflict, you see choices being made. Maybe you get double crossed. You don't see enough of the things that make some great movies. Like in games, it's pretty narrow. You start from point A, you go through level 1, level 2, level 3. The climax builds up, and then you kill the boss. Game's over. And then you wait for a new sequel that's often very different from the rest of the series. But continue a great story. It can definitely work. It just takes great storytellers and people not. I guess the difference with games is because of the production of a game, it takes so freaking long. Like 3 to 5 years is pretty long. Where a movie, I mean, they're turning around sequels to movies in generally like 2 years on average, for a good movie. That doesn't always work. But again, it's going to come down to story. But I like these new helmets. Like I said, armor choice is great. Even if we can somewhere along the line to even make modifications to Chief, maybe make modifications where you can kind of make Chief a little bit more like your own, like put certain aesthetics on Chief. Maybe you pick an armor loadout to go into a certain battle. Like, hey, Chief's going to come over here. Chief, we might recommend that you use this particular loadout because you're going to go up against some. This is going to be, like the mission's crazy, so maybe more of a stealth Chief or a bit of a tank.
So you're suggesting that maybe adding an RPG element, possibly?
Yes, because people like that, right? If one thing that keeps people coming back to a lot of the new games is having that little personalization feel. That's why games like Destiny still have a pretty large base, because you walk in, with the great kind of like Halo-like mechanics. but you're also like building your own player. Your work and your effort sort of pays off, and it shows, and you see these things. And they could certainly incorporate a little bit of that into the Halo franchise and give people a little bit of that personal touch, something that makes going through the campaign worth the while. I mean, we always see it with multiplayer, how you get to customize your stuff, but maybe a little bit more throughout the campaign. But there's a lot of things you can do with the franchise. But I love the fact now you can go boats. We had air before. We had some of the airship battles, which are cool because it certainly breaks up the monotony of being constantly on foot. You know what? Even something as small, and I know people are gonna hate this idea, but some people will love it. What even the idea of giving you the option to play in first person or in third person for that matter.
I know again, this is probably going to get booed, but I wouldn't mind playing because you know what? They've had those third person perspectives when he's holding the cannon. You know what I'm saying? Like the big heavy cannon, and it goes to the third person. I actually really thought that was dope.
Yeah, I mean, for multiplayer, probably not going to work so well, but I think in single player campaign, it definitely could work for some people would really enjoy it because some people have gotten so used to playing games from that perspective, and I think to be able to see Chief a little bit more as opposed to just out of the visor could definitely be cool. Again, as long as you make it optional, there's no harm in options. You don't have to play. You play how you like, but everybody kind of goes home happy. So I can't really say any more than that. I really can't wait till E3 because I think we're going to see a really good rollout on this game. Maybe even beforehand. I think it's about time we start really seeing some footage, some real meat and potatoes of this game. Like now is the time, Microsoft. You got a little over half a year now before this console drops. You need to get your fans excited. Halo it's not a secret. It hasn't been a secret for over 2 years. But start show us a little bit. You're showing us specs now. Get us excited about your games. This is the thing. We don't need to see it through toy lines. We want to see the game. I want to see some physical, tangible, not CGI pre-rendered anything. I want to see gameplay. Give us a little teaser, a little taste. Let us know why we're dropping $600 or $700 on a Series X, and get people invested and back into this franchise big time. If they get, like I said, deliver a great story, give us some great environments as well. Because one of the things in my favorite parts of the Halo series, when it used to go to Earth, like old Mombasa or whatever it was called, New Mombasa, when the environments were a little bit more identifiable. I always hated Halo the most when you got in the later levels and you always ended up being on like the ring or these boring gray flat looking environments, fighting just like brutes or the Covenant guys in tight quarters. It was like and just whack, 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 all these little dudes coming out. But the gameplay has always been solid. It's just the rest of it's got to keep pace. And like I said, some new ideas, a little injection into the series is great. Bringing in new characters never bad. It's just how you do it. Locke is a fantastic character. I think Locke would be great as DLC or somewhere in the game, but just don't force your players on. Don't force things on players. Give them the option. Like even if you have excuse me, if part of the way through the game you get to a point in the level and then you have that choice. You either go left and then you play as Locke, or you go right and you play as Chief. But either which way, it's how you want to play it. Even something like that, you kind of like almost like in the Gears games, when you got those points and you had to take the left or right, and all of a sudden you'd be paired up with one teammate guy, or if you went right, you'd go on the other side and you play with with Dom or whatever. You know what I mean? Like little things like that, but just keep it fresh. Great weapons as well. Cut out the filler ones. Get weapons that really feel impactful and make it damage. Because nothing's worse than feel like you get this weapon and you're this big tank soldier and you got this weapon that feels like it's a freaking pellet gun. Make like the power sword. When you always get the power sword, you're just like, yeah. I like that feeling when you get these weapons. You're like, damn, I'm gonna really screw somebody up in here. But anyway, I'm gonna stop yapping. I can't wait for this game. Love where they're going, these little teasers, and just can't wait to see more of the actual game.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. Jamie, I want to get your opinion on this because obviously change has to come. I think that with a new engine and a new way to play Halo, which they've been suggesting, seems as if we are going to get big changes. Now, how big those changes are going to be, I think that they have to understand that Halo is long in the tooth, and that does not make it a problem. It doesn't make it an aging franchise that can't come back in a big way. Again, I was banging the drum about Gears, and even though we got the Gears that we all know and love, we're throwing ourselves up against cover and chainsawing. we did have the ability to explore and do side quests and find collectibles and weapons that you could only find if you're looking for them. And with Halo being the flagship title of the Xbox brand, Infinite, like Noof was alluding to, has a significant amount of pressure. 343 on them right now. I would not want to be where they're at, but they are a talented team. We know what they've done with Halo 4. Halo's 4 story, fantastic. Multiplayer, abysmal, right? Halo 5. Now, again, this is going to vary because I did not like the story in 5. Did not like it.
It's the Halo hate train already leaving the station.
Yeah, no, I didn't like the story, but the gameplay, I mean, the multiplayer was where it's at, and with the addition of Warzone, they really stepped it up. Now, what they need to do is release a game that has the best of both worlds that we saw in Halo 3, for instance. That really was the defining moment for the brand. For you personally, how much do you want Halo Infinite to change? And with the leaks of these with the toy line, are you interested to know that other characters, weapons, and vehicles will be added to Halo Infinite?
Well, I love Halo, but Halo 5, like the story, it wasn't there. Like the multiplayer, I think in Halo 5 is phenomenal.
Yes,
but like the story is the main reason I play Halo, and it just wasn't that good. We're playing as Locke most of the time, and I liked Locke. I think Locke should get his own game, his own spin-off. But when it comes to like Halo Infinite and this whole toy show thing, with Star Wars, we get these toys showing off months before release and find things out. Now, Mega Bloks may have fooled everyone a little bit, and they may not have. So they showed a picture of a boat and a jet bike. When you get a Halo, when you get Lego or Mega Bloks, on the back it shows you how to make the product, but it also says, hey, you can also make these other things as well. Well, the hover bike and the boat were highlighted in orange, and the tweet basically said you can make these as well. Now, the reason I think that it could still be, in the game is that there was a whole set put together of like a river and some boats running across grass and it crashed Pelican. There was a boat in the river, and I was thinking, well, maybe there's boats in the game. But my point is that around a year ago, there was this report that Halo would have light RPG elements.
Right.
And given that when Halo 5 came out, apparently Phil Spencer wasn't happy with the 3 levels in Halo 5 where you literally just walk. Like, you could tell 343 tried to do something different. They didn't want to have this just another linear first-person shooter campaign. They wanted to do something different. And I think in 2020, I don't think, unless you Call of Duty or Battlefield, I don't think the traditional linear style FPS campaign flies anymore, because we get these games, we spend the money on them, and we want to invest time into them. And look at Gears. I love Gears 5. They gave me something else to do. I went and got collectibles. There was like side activities to do. Now, that game wasn't open world. It was hub world. You have these linear style games with these open areas, and it gives you some feeling and gameplay from an open world game. It gives you options. It gives you more gameplay to do, more variety. And I think they're going to do that with Halo Infinite, because there have been rumors and leaks, apparently, that there might be a grappling hook and Metroidvania style elements. Now, if that's true, the boat thing might make sense and the hover bike makes sense, because Halo needs to be fresh again. And one of my big gripes about Halo 5 was that the amount of vehicle levels, I think there was 2. And when you go back to like Halo 1, 2, 3, and even 4, there was a lot of vehicle missions. But in Halo 5, that was very disappointing. Like, I remember one level in Halo 5 where you actually pilot a Banshee, and that's disappointing me. But when it comes to like the weapons and that, like the weapons look fresh from the nerf stuff that was revealed. And the thing is, the Halo fan base has been divided for years, right? There's no like ifs or buts about it. Like, the Halo fan base has been split, and do we want sprint? Do we not want sprint? And here's the thing: I've never said this before on podcast or Twitter or on my YouTube channel. I don't like Halo. I don't like Master Chief's new armor. I like Halo 4 and 5's armor. I think it looks more militaristic. Okay. I think it looks more practical, but I haven't whined about it because I'm still getting a Halo game, and it's still a Space Marine, so it's cool or whatever. But I think we shouldn't keep leaning on the past to progress the franchise. We should look forward to new stuff. And I think we're going to get that in this game. So as well as Chief looking kind of like how he used to in Halo 1, 2, and 3, the game looks kind of fresh. And these toys and the Nerf stuff, and it's all pointing towards it's going to be a mix of both. I think a lot of people are going to be happy with this. And
this is the set you were talking about, right? The
one,
yeah.
Like I don't think they put a crashed Pelican there. That's obviously a set, and then a boat that you could just randomly make. Like I see that image and think, oh, there's boats. And in the first Halo Infinite trailer, there's a lake in the background. So
yeah.
I'm leaning to believe that the Metroidvania thing might be real, but I just want people to be a bit cautious because it could just be Mega Bloks saying, hey, you can make a boat as well. But all in all, like, I'm looking forward to it because like it seems like 343 of like here's the thing, Halo 4 is my favorite campaign.
Yes, I would agree. I would agree on that.
You know, the connection between Master Chief and Cortana.
Yes.
It was a very personal story. So while the galaxy was about to end and Earth was about to be destroyed by the Didact, the fact is that Cortana was dying pretty much, and Master Chief wanted to save her. And that was the connection that people liked about that game. But Halo 5 kind of just threw that story in the bin. And it looks like they're going to try and fix it with this game. And it's exciting because there seems to be a lot of Halo fans pleased at the minute with what we've seen. And that's exciting because it's going to be the first Halo game in like 10 years where people aren't arguing about it.
I mean, look, I think that when you say the word change and you position one of your favorite titles in there, people get a little nervous. You know, people don't want to turn on Halo and not feel like it's Halo. And I think 343 understands that. I think Microsoft as a company understands that. And I think that they're not going to do anything that's going to ruin the game as a whole for the millions of fans that are looking forward to Halo, and more so Master Chief making a grand entrance. And obviously we have to keep saying how important this is, simply because this is a console year launch. This is launching alongside what's presumably the most powerful console ever released at home, and they obviously already said that the Series X version is the best version available. So they know what they're doing. Hyena Den, I want to get your opinion on this because I don't necessarily know what your affiliation is for Master Chief or the Halo franchise, but being an Xbox fan, I would imagine you want to see this franchise succeed. But my question to you, more so than, do you want to see Halo do good? Well, of course you do. How much change are you willing to accept? But more importantly, how much change do you think that 343 can do to the Master Chief and the Halo universe that the fans would be willing to accept?
That's kind of that's a prickly question because, you know, obviously, like most of us have already stated on this podcast, Halo fans are just like any other fan out there within a franchise or fandom that has been long running for well over a decade plus now, getting close to 2 decades, in fact. Is you're gonna have your people on one side of the camp that wants things to go back to a more traditional sense, and you're going to have others on another completely different side where, you know, evolution is the name of the game. And I think it needs to be more of a mixture of both. And I know that kind of sounds like the safest route for an approach. And obviously, like many people in the comment section already know, I don't know. I know like maybe 0.01% about Halo and its lore, and I try not to act like I do. So, you know, me saying what I think the franchise needs is more of an outside looking in sort of perspective with just listening to people online, and that's, you know, for both sides of the camp. But I will say, so when they first revealed this game at E3 2018, it was the very first thing they showed when their show started. I had absolutely no idea it was a Halo game. And I think that's I think that bodes well for me as a person that doesn't care for Halo, if that makes any sense, because it wasn't something I was expecting it to be. So when they start, panning from one environment to another, there was the desert scape, which looked
Yes,
awesome. I actually
did.
For those that know me, I actually live in the desert. I love desert environments in video games. Like they're just really cool to me. But it went from a desert scape to a lush forest area. They had a lake or the seaside or whatever that was. I remember in the forest section when it panned to that, and you had all those deer next to each other. I remember my reaction when I first saw that, and I literally yelled out Fable, and then
That's great. I love it.
and then when it was Halo, I was like, oh, shoot, I should have known better. It wasn't Fable, but that sort of thing. It gave me a good impression as just a person that likes video games, because A, the environments looked beautiful, and B, it wasn't something that I thought it was going to be. So when we're hearing stuff about, these rumors about, well, there's going to be different types of vehicles that you can use to cross over to different sections of, whatever this is, a hub world, open world, so on and so forth. I think there is some sort of truth to that, if you're going by their first trailer that they showed off at E3 2018, because they showed off this like weird robot thing hanging over the ocean, and you can see like a dungeon under the water, so you might even be able to go underwater in this game. I don't know if that was a thing that you could do in past Halos. I have no idea, but that's still a really cool thing to think about in general. I have no idea what the fans want with this game, but I know for myself they've already ticked off the boxes of the environments are beautiful and they look like something you'd want to explore. I don't know, it might have been you, Jamie, or New. Somebody brought up the thing of Metroidvania. If there's Metroidvania aspects to it where you're doubling back and you're getting collectibles like with Gears 5, which I actually like doing in Gears 5. If you're doing all of that, that's something for me as a fan that I'd like, because I like Metroidvania style games anyways. You got the exploration down, or it looks like you have it down with the environments, and then adding RPG elements to the game would help me out as a fan as well, because I love RPGs to death, and it would give players reason to continue doing something, have a goal for them to keep going back and forth from location to location, whether that's new armor pieces, new weapons, X, Y, and Z. You can fill out the rest of the blanks, but I think it almost seems like going into this entire generation, you can't help but just hope, and you feel in your gut like something's good. Whether you're a fan of, if you didn't like the last Forza Horizon game, you feel like the next one, you feel like there's something that there's there with the new leadership at Xbox, and they're doing everything right. With Halo, you might have not liked 4 and 5, but you kind of sense something's there with this game, and so on and so forth. You can say that for all of their studios now. And I think I want to say I believe in the team at 343, because I'm always a person like I don't like people dogpiling on developers. I think that's a really bad way of going about this industry.
I would agree,
because obviously these people, they do this as their job, and they're not trying to make products that people don't like, obviously. So it's, I want to believe. I think I understand the trepidation with fans for obvious reasons, but I think they've learned enough in the last, what has it been, 4 or 5 years, and they've added things that new people could enjoy. So it's always about striking both sides and finding a mix in between, if that makes sense.
No, I mean, it makes perfect sense. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see how they do balance change versus history. And obviously, you can never forget where you came from. So there are going to be instances where Master Chief is going to have corridor firefights. And I would imagine that it would feel weird if it didn't. There's going to be vehicle missions. Hopefully, there's even a few in there with the Pelican, right? Hopefully, you're going to get a chance to have open worlds, a big open world map to drive the Warthog, whether you're playing multiplayer or single player. But what's interesting is getting that balance, figuring out a way to appeal to both new players for the Halo universe, as well as, bringing back your fans that have been supporting the brand all of these years. And as you can see on the screen, Noof dropped out because he had a PC. See that? PC Master Race, suck it. Had a PC malfunction, and he will be back as soon as he can figure that out. And as we crossed 430 people watching today, I just want to say thank everybody for being here. We still have a ton of show to go through, but I also just want to say, if you are new, welcome. Hit that subscribe button. And if you already are a fan of Double Barrel Gaming, do me a favor and really consider hitting the like button. It would be greatly appreciated. But I want to move on, of course, to the next topic. Now, obviously, Ori and the Will of the Wisps is a game that has been in development for quite some time. And without sounding like a complete fanboy, the last couple of days with Ori have been amazing. There was a 20-minute, which I only watched pieces of because I don't want to ruin the story. Apparently, IGN ran a video where they showed off the first 20 minutes of Ori. I personally, like I said, only saw snippets because I don't want anything ruined. But as you can see by the pictures I'm going to be bringing up, this is probably one of the most gorgeous games that we're going to play this year. It is 2D hand-drawn artwork, unlike anything we've seen before it. I mean, you can match Cuphead, or you can compare the first Ori and the Blind Forest to it. But I think what we're going to get with this is extremely special. But I think that the 5 years that it was in development, it's going to be well worth it. Now, obviously, Ori made headlines on March 11th, which is coming up very soon on its anniversary, its 5-year anniversary, way back in 2015 when it was released on the Xbox One. And developer Moon Studios continues their unbelievable craftsmanship with Ori and the Will of the Wisp. Now, I'm going to say this, and I don't think this is going to come off as a surprise. Ori and the Blind Forest took the entire gaming space by storm with its unreal hand-drawn artwork and incredibly layered and deep lore that was powered by an emotional story that to this day is still one of the best stories told in a video game. Now, Ori and the Will of the Wisps apparently will pick up right after its predecessor's ending, and it sees Ori going beyond the forest of Nimble and confronting new challenges, and ultimately finds the meaning of his existence, which amounts to a ton of platforming and puzzle solving to go with that combat. And obviously, we've already seen that there are going to be huge boss fights. Now, it's releasing on March 11th for the Xbox One and PC, 5 years after its original release. And it's going to be, according to the report, 3 times in size, scope, and scale of the first game. And it's going to be available on Steam and Xbox Game Pass at launch. Now, this shouldn't come off as a surprise. I'm buying the collector's edition, which I just brought up on the screen. I couldn't resist. I want to support the developer. I want to support Microsoft, and I think that collector's edition is absolutely stunning. Newfilm is back. But you know what? Let me go to Jamie Moran. Jamie, as we get closer to the release of Ori and the Will of the Wisps, I think that it's safe to assume that this is going to be considered by many of the gaming populace at large, as well as the gaming media, as the darling of 2020. And not to sound like a complete nut or anything, I'm going to say that even in a year that has Halo Infinite and The Last of Us 2 and Cyberpunk 2077 and, of course, the Resident Evil 3 remake, as well as Final Fantasy 7 remake, I think it's safe to assume, and I don't mind going out on a ledge here and saying this, Ori and the Will of the Wisps will in fact be in the conversation for Game of the Year 2020. What are your personal expectations on Moon Studios' newest title?
Well, everyone, including myself, loved the last game. It was hard. Like, that was not an easy game.
No,
but it's a gorgeous game, Cohen, because like that game's art style is like absolutely stunning. You can take any screenshot of it, and it can just be a wallpaper. And this new game,
pretty much.
This new game, it's 4K HDR, and I can't wait to play this in HDR because HDR is just phenomenal. But like one of my biggest gripes, and it wasn't really much of a gripe, is like in the first game you didn't really have many offensive moves, and when it came to bosses, it wasn't really like that. But in this game, you have these huge towering bosses, some which take place in like single stages, and some of which take place over chases. And in this new game, you also have weapons. So there's like in the latest footage, you see him using a hammer, a sword, and a bow and arrow.
Yes,
and like that's a lot more like to gameplay this time around, because the last one you could jump, you could fire that blue thingy, and that was pretty much it. But in this game, like the IGN footage, like it went on for so long. Like I don't like to watch like so much gameplay. I feel like it ruins it. But I watched I watched about 2 minutes of it, and it was a chase scene, and it's like it'll have you so on edge, because like the first game, it wasn't easy, and there was times where the camera's following you up a tree and you're going to die any second, and it's very suspenseful. But this game looks harder, and apparently it is harder, so it's like but yeah, I can't wait, man, because like out of all the games that's coming this year, and there's a lot, always up there with one of my most anticipated, and it's like 2 weeks away. But I can't wait. Like the game's gorgeous, and the thing is, and this goes for all games, I feel like we see too much of games before games come out. And when IGN put out that 25 minutes, I just thought, I'm tempted to watch it, but I think I'm going to stand back. So I watched a few minutes of it, but like I just want to see less like massive gameplay chunks of games. That might just be me, but yeah.
No. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, listen, I'm going to be honest with you. I read several stories to put this topic together, and of course, I watched a little bit of the video, but I only watched it in small snippets because I want to experience the story for myself. I don't want anything ruined. I know we've seen a couple of boss fights that they showed last year's E3. We've seen, come up on, but I try not to. I try to look but not pay attention, I guess, if that makes any sense. But let me go to Noof Nukem. Welcome Noof back. Noof, first of all, thanks for coming back real quick. But let me catch up on some super chats. First of all, Dreadpool, dude, thank you so much for being here. And of course, thank you for your outstanding generosity. He drops a $10 super chat. And going back to Halo, he says Halo could use the old Star Wars route, i.e. Halo to be Master Chief's story and keep up the lore with side quests of different characters like ODST and Locke in different games. And I would agree. I hope that this is, and I again, don't hate me for comparing it. I'm not saying I want it to be like the D word, and I'm not talking about with the one between your legs. I'm talking about Destiny. I don't want it to be like Destiny, but you see the way Destiny continues the story. Right, through new DLC. I would like to see Halo do that as well. JD Gamer, dude, thank you so much for hanging out. Really appreciate it. He drops a $2 super chat. Says, please, Mrs. Please, you have to acquire. Oh yeah, Microsoft, please acquire Moon Studios. I gotta be honest with you, man. I think that's done. I think that they just haven't announced it because those announcements, like Asobo Studios, which I still think is already a part of Microsoft Game Studios, has not been announced yet. And our very good friend Sin Vendetta drops a very generous $5 super chat. And hey, Sin, thanks for being here. He says, why in the world hasn't Microsoft acquired Moon Studios? Yeah, that is a great question. I mean, again, we can't say for sure that maybe they don't want to be acquired, but I have to admit that as we've heard on many small developers in the past, where like you look at Cuphead, for instance, the team that did that, MDHR, they were in personal financial crunch where they had to mortgage their own homes to finish the game. And of course, you don't want to see that happen to anybody. But they obviously put out a hit, and they did really well on the Switch. But getting back to this particular topic, Noof Nukem, I want to go to you next on this because I'm interested to hear what your expectations are for Ori and the Will of the Wisps, and for me personally. And again, this is getting into the weeds a little bit. I think that it's going to be a mega hit. I think that on both the Xbox platform and the PC, it's going to sell very well for Moon Studios. More importantly, I think, and this is my personal, and I'll say it live on the air, I think it's going to hit in Metacritic anywhere between a 93 and a 95. For you personally, what are you expecting from Ori and the Will of the Wisps? Can it exceed what the original did when it was released in 2015?
Well, the only way this game would be more important for me if it was called Hori and the Will of Her Hips, but that's a different game for a different time. No, just had to get my Noof Nukums out there. Look, I have no expectations for this game, and I'll tell you why. Because I never played the first one. It's just one of those games that looks beautiful, but I've never played it, never got into it. I can't really even tell you why. It just was never on my radar. But it does look absolutely gorgeous. The sequel looks even better still. So we definitely know that the team at Moon Studios is very talented. I've heard from lots of fans that they love the original Ori. They're very excited for the sequel, and so they should be. I definitely think it's going to be another stellar game. I mean, if you look at the level design, like I said, the attention to detail. I heard the play control as well as tight. It's on point. Some very unique and creative bosses as well. And like I said, just the artwork. You can't ignore the game for what it is. 2D side-scrolling platformer. But a lot more to it than just that. It's definitely one of the most beautiful games of the generations. That sort of thing. So I can't, like I said, I can't weigh in much on the sequel because I didn't play the first game. I could have picked it up, I suppose, on several occasions, but just because of like time and backlog, and a lot of those games generally don't. I don't know. They just any of the 2D side-scrolling stuff these days really never like a big thing for me. So just other games on the radar. So will I pick up? I would like to play the original before I play the sequel. So maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. Some people say it's hard too, and that's another thing. Like if it's frustratingly hard, then it's probably not a game for me because I get pissed off really, really quickly, and I can't afford to be breaking controllers.
It does have a little bit of a steep
I still haven't beat Cuphead. And that's one of the most beautiful and awesome games of the generation, but that game frustrates the piss out of me too. So yeah, like I'm not saying I don't like a challenge, but there is a point, where you stop and restart and stop and restart and stop and restart. It sounds like Sekiro. And then I just get, like I said, I start swearing at the screen. I lose all enjoyment, and I have no interest in that. Pardon the old the F-bombs there, but
no, it's okay.
Yeah, it's not my bag. But like I said, I'm excited for the fans that are excited. I think it's going to be a stellar game. If you love the first one, pretty sure everybody's already pre-ordered and ready to buy this one. So I'm just going to leave it at that. I may pick this game up in the future, but right now it is not anywhere close to my must-have radar. So I'll leave it there.
I mean, that's fine. I mean, again, I say this all the time. I should get a T-shirt made up and sell it. Not every game is for every gamer. Hyena Den, I want to get your opinion on Ori. Obviously, I think outside of what Halo Infinite is going to be, the release of a new Forza for the launch of the Series X, I still think Hellblade is going to be a launch title, but people call me a lunatic, and that's fine. This is no doubt one of Microsoft's biggest releases, especially early on in 2020. It's already getting Game of the Year buzz. And yes, like I said earlier, I understand that there's some real big AAA games coming out, but there is no doubt the quality we've already seen. There's probably a ton that we haven't, and there's going to be a ton of surprises. I would expect that this is going to be in that Game of the Year talk. But for you personally, are you excited? And are you like many, can't wait for March 11th to hit? And are you a fan of the game?
Well, honestly, everybody that knows me knows like I said it before, I absolutely love Metroidvania games. They were something that I didn't really play much of at the latter half of last generation with I think it was Dusk and Elysian Tale.
Great games,
yeah,
dude.
Absolutely fantastic. And so the story I want to tell actually about Ori is people know that I don't buy many games as it is because of Game Pass, but before Game Pass even existed, I still didn't buy that many games. I was very specific on the titles I wanted to buy and when I wanted to buy them. And I had extra money lying around what was it, late 2015. I already bought Forza Motorsport 6. I was already good there. And I saw this game on my dashboard. And I'm like, I'm looking at the screenshots. I'm reading the description. I'm like, what is this thing? I've never heard of this Moon Studios. I don't know what this Ori game is. So I'm like, before I even bought it, I looked up some gameplay of it on YouTube, and it sold me within 7 minutes. I'm like, I don't need to see anymore. I want to play it for myself. I go back to my dashboard. I instantly buy it for the full $30. Let me tell you, that was the best $30 I have spent on a game console for a video game in the last 10 years. Ori, to me, is one of the most precious IPs I have ever laid my eyes on, from the art style to the movement of the game, the soundtrack itself. I made a joke about the soundtrack on Twitter, and for everybody that saw it, it was a really stupid joke, but I love the soundtrack so like, I don't, when it comes to top game soundtracks for me, Ori is literally at number one. Like, I can't think of any other soundtrack out there for video games that I like better. It's just so amazing, and I couldn't help myself when I saw the previews go up for Ori and the Will of the Wisps. I really couldn't help I'm like, I gotta at least see a little bit more, because the last gameplay they showed was like 2018 at E3. But nevertheless, I am so excited to play this sequel. I already obviously beat the first game when that came out in 2015. I beat Ori and the Blind Forest Definitive Edition as well, because I just wanted to play it over again. And now with this game, they're showing so much different stuff that you can do. New abilities, new melee combats, new ranged combats, new like buffs for the game. So you'll have like passive like health and more damage and so on and so forth. There is so much going for this game. I really hope it gets the recognition it deserves, instead of it being chalked up as, well,
it's an indie title.
Well, not just that, but like with reviewers saying that, you know, it's just like the first game, and it's like, well, sure, it should be, you know, and then for some reason games get penalized because of that, which blows my mind. That's why you know, when I look at something like, you know, if there's going to be a Cuphead 2 as well, or sorry, Cuphead the Delicious Last Course, I think that's something that it might get fired upon with reviewers, because you look at the game and it's like, well, you know, it's adding on to it, sure, but it's too much like the first game. And I just hope that Ori gets the recognition it really deserves, because I think outside of, I know Randall Thor said this, and I 110% agree with him when he says Ori to him, and Ori to me as well, I think is better, almost better than any game Xbox has put out this entire generation, and almost any game that PlayStation has put out this generation. That's how special Ori is to me, brother. I'm telling you, when I say I love Ori, I love this franchise, and Ori is one of the reasons why I have started trying out Hollow Knight, and will hopefully start trying out Shovel Knight, and so on and so forth. I'm really excited for this game, and I'm just really excited, really excited for those that want to play this game. It's on Game Pass. You have zero reason not to try it unless you don't have the service. And even if you don't have the service, buy the game. I don't care where you get it, on PC, on Xbox, on if it comes to Switch later down the line. Get it on wherever you can, because this game is freaking amazing and gorgeous. And the last thing I'm going to say about this is, everybody already knows my stance on when it comes to this whole indie versus single A, double A, triple A jargon. I cannot stand these narratives.
That really gets you goat. I know you've talked about it before.
Yeah, I personally cannot stand these narratives for the life of me. Like I said before, I think Ori is better than most triple A games that have even released this generation. You look at something like freaking... I don't even want to bring up Anthem. I really don't. That's how much I love Ori. I'll go to bat for it more than almost any other game out there. And I'm just really excited for the team over at Moon Studios. And I know that people in the chat have said, well, why hasn't Microsoft bought Moon Studios yet? And the thing with Moon Studios is they're not... You think of studio in the traditional sense of they're at a location, that's where all their employees go. Moon Studios, which it's kind of implied in the name, isn't in one studio.
No, it's all over the place.
Yeah, they're all over the globe. So trying to purchase something like that, a lot of people would lose their jobs, which I do not want, because they have something really, really talented there with all the people working there. But it would just be something really difficult to do. And I personally, I don't even want to see Ori. I don't want to see Moon Studios bought. Anyways, they after Ori and the Will of the Wisps, which I expect rave reviews of, they're also working on some brand new stuff that they've already confirmed, and I'm really excited to see their next venture after this game. Really excited.
Look, this is a small studio that could, and they continue to impress with each release. Obviously, Ori and the Blind Forest released 5 years ago, and we're coming up on the 5th year anniversary. On that 5th year anniversary, we're getting Ori and the Will of the Wisps. As soon as this game comes out, I would imagine that they're going to be hard at work, which they're working on another title. It's in a new IP. I don't think it's been specified where it's going, but I think it's safe to assume that it's going to be for the Xbox brand, because that's where they lay their head down, and that's the partnership that they have with Microsoft, which is great because Microsoft gives them all the time when they need to put out quality content. And I think that even suggesting for a second, whether it's publicly or socially, that this game should not be in the same conversation as The Last of Us, Halo, and Cyberpunk, I think you should probably keep that to yourself until you play this through, and then you can talk about its quality not being up to your personal standards. This is going to be in the conversation for Game of the Year. I cannot wait. Even though I have Game Pass paid up all the way till 2022, I am still buying the collector's edition like I talked about this morning on Twitter. I cannot wait. I think that it's my way of giving back, so to speak, to supporting the developer, supporting the Xbox platform. And if you are a fan of this franchise and you have a spare $40, do yourself a favor and go out and buy this collector's edition, which I think is absolutely stunning. Before we move on to the next topic, I have to thank Sin Vendetta once again for his generosity of $5. He drops in a super chat. He says the hardest choice for him is how I'm going to divvy up my time between playing Ori and the Will of the Wisps and Neo 2. Yes, I want to get Neo 2. I loved the first one. Clutchman01 drops a $2 super chat, and he says, what? Game Pass is bad now. Pocket watching is back. No, Game Pass is not bad. Game Pass is the greatest thing since sliced bread, in my personal opinion. But I want to bring up the next topic, and I think it's going to be a very interesting one, because not only does it involve CD Projekt Red, one of the most famous and beloved developers of the Witcher series. We're going to be talking a little bit about Cyberpunk 2077 and what they said recently, which is very interesting. Now, obviously, in what's going to become the standard once the next generation officially starts this fall, Cyberpunk 2077 developers confirm that they are going to have a huge they actually have huge plans for the version that's going to be running on the Xbox Series X, and that the AAA developer is going to be supporting. They're the first AAA third-party developer to support the newly announced smart delivery system for the Xbox Series X. Now, in a story that I pulled directly from our very good friends and brothers at the Iron Lords podcast from the website lordsofgaming.net, they're reporting that CD Projekt Red has confirmed that they have big plans for the Xbox Series X version of their behemoth AAA title known as Cyberpunk 2077. And this lays the foundation and a trend that is going to be the standard for all third-party developers to build from. Now, Cyberpunk has recently delayed. It was recently delayed until September, which is fine. And it's unclear if the upgrade that they're referring to is going to be available at launch or at a later date. But CD Projekt Red is among the first to take advantage of Microsoft's smart delivery feature announced this week with that big post from, of course, the head of Xbox in Phil Spencer. And here is their official statement from CD Projekt Red's Twitter account. They say this: gamers should never be forced to purchase the same game twice or pay for upgrades. Owners of Cyberpunk 2077 for the Xbox One will receive the Xbox Series X upgrade for free when available. Now, CD Projekt Red was responding to the Xbox Twitter post that said this: the Xbox Series X brings the next generation of compatibility. Play thousands of your games across 4 generations that look and feel better than ever. The smart delivery system guarantees you're playing the best version of your game for your Xbox. Hashtag power your dreams. Now, why this is important is because CD Projekt Red is reading the industry of what could potentially become a price war with developers and publishers charging for upgrades for the Series X and PS5. And we already know that Microsoft has already put the kibosh on charging for upgrades. And I'm going to say this, as of this show, right, this smart delivery system is only confirmed for Microsoft and was designed exclusively for the Xbox platform in mind. There is no word on whether Sony will take the same stand on upgrades to existing or newly released titles. Now, I'm not going to assume that they're not, but we do have to suggest and say publicly that they are known for re-releasing games with higher fidelity graphics and charging their fan base for it. They've done it with all of their big games, and I hope they take the same stance as, of course, Microsoft. Now, hearing this new confirmed information raises CD Projekt Red into the upper echelon in developer/gamer community relations and really puts the entire industry on notice. And I'm proud they've taken this very early stance and will showing other developers that no, you shouldn't charge your community that already bought your game for upgrades in graphical fidelity and pixel count. Now, I want to go to Noof Nukem on this. Now, Noof, obviously, you still buy your games physically, and that's totally cool. But obviously, in saying so, how important do you think it is not only for Microsoft to put it out there immediately that all upgrades are free, but CD Projekt Red, one of the most beloved developers, getting out in front of this and already coming to Microsoft's side and saying, yes, we're with them, no charge for the Xbox Series X version that we have big plans for?
Well, we always talk about pro-consumer moves. I can't think of anything more pro-consumer than a company that is not taking advantage of their fan base, and that is fantastic. So kudos and big applause to Cyberpunk and CD Projekt Red for doing that. So basically what it basically does is instill confidence in them as a developer, as a purchaser going out and buying the game. You know you're not going to be left out in the cold no matter which system you choose to play on at the end of the day. And that's a very smart move for them, considering that Cyberpunk is so close to the launch of the new console. You know, a lot of, not everybody's going to have a chance to upgrade to the Series X, right? And I'm sure there is going to be a nice little performance jump. It's definitely going to look and play the best on that particular platform. But I mean, it's nice to know that when you are ready to upgrade, you don't have to go out and drop that $60, $70, $80, whatever it is you might in your particular country or region on that same game again. You get all of the benefits again without having to pay for the for it. So that is fantastic news. Everybody should be on this trend, and this is a trend we should see a lot more of, instead of people doing the, hey, let's wait a couple years and do a remaster. If you're really going to remaster games, make sure that they're done from the ground up, like a complete rework. Games like Shadow of the Colossus or Gears of War Ultimate Edition or something like that, where you basically
Resident Evil 2, for instance.
Resident Evil 2, yes. If you're going to redo the entire engine and the game's going to look completely different, even play differently, but still retain that content, sure. But if it's just, hey, we're going to bump the resolution up, but we're going to make this a completely different game that won't run on your old hardware, you need the new hardware to do it. And we know a company who's done that several times at several of their games. Like I said, going to the well twice for the same exact game is not really cool. I know many of us have done it and really haven't said much, but it's still not cool, right? Regardless, we all like the bigger, better version, but it's not cool. So what they're doing here is definitely, it's a trendsetter. It's like I said, it instills confidence in your purchase and instills confidence in them as a developer that really, takes its fans not for granted. And they don't publish a lot of games, right? This is, their second game in how many years? But like I said, they're going to make sure that people buy their games simply for that alone, because they're putting out quality products. And again, they're not taking advantage of their fan base. EA, Activision, those guys who constantly just don't really give a crap.
Yeah, when I was reading that, I actually thought to mention them. They're the first two biggest offenders when it comes to choking out their fan base.
Oh, totally. Like, the best pro-consumer move that EA's done in a while, like, is not giving up on the Battlefront franchise, adding a lot of additions and content to that game, and not kind of going, hey, you suckers who bought the game early, here we got all this stuff for you, but you're going to have to pay out the yin-yang for it, that sort of thing. So kudos on them there. Trying to make right by the game. Sometimes it's a little bit too late, but kudos to them. Don't want to get off topic, but again, I'll just leave it at that. I think this is fantastic news. I certainly can't wait to pick up my copy of this game. I have it pre-ordered. This one I actually do have pre-ordered. Can't wait to pick it up this fall. And if all goes well and I can squeeze out the dough, perhaps I'll be playing it on the Xbox Series X. But if not, I'm pretty sure it's going to look and run pretty damn good on my Xbox One X.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's going to look fantastic on the current X, and obviously on the Series X, it's going to be. I mean, them already coming out and saying that we have plans for the Series X version of it tells me that it is going to have every bell and whistle you can imagine. Jamie Moran, I want to get your opinion on this, because obviously you had a lot to say about what Phil Spencer talked about on this Static Monday, where he dropped the biggest of bombs. Regarding the specs of the Series X that's launching later this year, but having the smart delivery system in the console, I think, is a big deal. But having a developer like the developers of Cyberpunk come out and say, hey, listen, we are going to make sure that our fans aren't charged extra money for advancements in graphics, graphical fidelity or pixel counts or frames per second. I think that is huge. And it makes sense even more so that we know that Microsoft has the marketing deal for Cyberpunk 2077. We know that there's a special edition console in the form of the Xbox One X coming out when this launches in September, which is going to be amazing. But for you personally, what are your thoughts on the smart delivery system? But more importantly, CD Projekt Red immediately coming out and saying that they're going to support this.
You know, CD Projekt Red are one of my favorite developers. I've been a fan of them since last generation. They're making a sci-fi RPG, which is perfect for me because that's all I talk about. And them talking about the smart delivery thing, and they're not going to charge you again to play the game on the next generation. And it's CD Projekt Red that just tends to school the rest of the industry and like says how it should be done.
Point.
Like when The Witcher came out in 2015, it not only came with a little letter saying thank you for purchasing the game and trusting us, it came with a code for 16 pieces of free DLC that were released over a few weeks. People like CD Projekt Red because we have no reason to not trust them. And they're going to do the same with Cyberpunk. So when they came out on Monday and said, look, you don't have to buy it again next gen. Well, this next generation is going to be a bit weird because last generation, let's talk about Assassin's Creed 4, right? The game launched on last gen and current gen. If you wanted to play it on current gen, you had to buy another copy. Different architectures, completely different. We didn't even have backwards compatibility. Next generation's different because we have backwards compatibility. It's the same architecture. It should all be working fine. So companies have two choices. They can either give us an update like how we do with Xbox One X, which is the good way to go, and they could let us know on the game case. Because around a year ago, I noticed something about Xbox game cases, and I mentioned this the other day. So Doom Eternal got its cover reveal last year, and the game case says Xbox on top. Just Xbox, and on the bottom there's a little green bar that says Xbox One. Well, that led me to believe they're just going to keep the same cases and they're just going to let you know on the bottom of the box what consoles it can play on. More cases have been popping up like this, so I think CD Projekt Red just came out saying, look, they're going to give us a free update. Because when you buy a PC game and you have like an ultra powerful rig, you don't pay for extra 4K textures. So I'm thinking that CD Projekt Red are just doing it the way a PC game does it, and there's other publishers looking at this right now probably thinking, I could charge for a next gen version. And I tell you what, the companies, EA, Activision, Bethesda, they'll all be looking at this thinking they're going to look so bad if they
oh my god, the PR nightmare. I don't want to be a part of that.
Because a prediction, we're going to have certain games from Square Enix, we're going to have certain games from Ubisoft and CD Projekt Red that will all come out with next gen updates for free. But I tell you, when EA come out with their sports games, racing games, next RPGs, and we have potentially Warner Brothers dropping 2 games this year, there's going to be a big issue when the game's announced and they say, oh yeah, we're going to launch a next gen version. People are going to be so angry about that because if I have Cyberpunk, I could play it on whatever Xbox I've got. It doesn't matter if it's my Xbox One S, my X, or my Series X. It doesn't matter. And CD Projekt Red is pretty much letting everyone know that this is how it should be done. And they've been doing this for years. They've been making fun of microtransactions for years. And people, and when I say people, I mean the industry, should look towards CD Projekt Red. Like, they make these fantastic games. They don't rely on trying to gouge pennies out of people every 5 seconds. And they're doing it with next gen as well. They're just going to give us a free update. They didn't have to, but they are. And frankly, that's huge because all of us people that bought games last gen going to next gen, like it's just, we're going to be spending less money on like buying the same game twice. Like, how many times has people bought Mario 3? How many times has people bought A Link to the Past? I've bought like A Link to the Past like 3 times, I think.
Yeah, dude. How many times did you buy Super Mario Brothers?
I think I have about 4 copies of it. But like I have like 3 copies of Assassin's Creed 4. Like, why? You know, and I've played 1. The point is that everyone should be following CD Projekt Red, and everyone else is on notice now because they're all going to look so bad, and it's the memes. It's just going to be hilarious because
I put it to this way: if EA or an Activision tries, even remotely tries, the public outrage is going to be a PR nightmare. And I gotta say, you know, obviously when you talk about CD Projekt Red, they are the darlings of the industry. And like I said, having them come out first, stand side by side with Microsoft regarding the smart delivery system, is a big deal. It's an even bigger deal. And it kind of, without saying anything, it kind of puts Sony in a bit of a position and puts them on notice as well, because Microsoft did that by announcing this, right? They made it. Phil Spencer made it his business to put it out there that this was for the gamers, that they're putting the gamer, at the center of this console, and having this smart delivery system ensures that you buy the game once, you play it where you want to play it. I'm not saying Sony is not going to have something similar. I'm not suggesting that at all. I'm saying that, again, thinking back to what Sony has done in the past, you bought The Last of Us on the PlayStation 3. How many people in this chat, including myself, went out and bought The Last of Us Remastered? Just about everybody, because they wanted to play it with a higher fidelity graphical look. And if you buy them, again, Sony's notorious, absolutely notorious for doing that. I'm glad that they're not going to, at least Microsoft is not going to fall into that trap. And obviously, I like to just kind of get to Hyena Den's opinion on this, because obviously we are just a little bit past 2 hours, and this has been an incredible show from start to finish. Hyena Den, for you personally, with Microsoft getting out in front of this, letting everyone know about the smart delivery system, and CD Projekt Red, like I said, standing side by side with Microsoft on this, I think that, I mean, I don't know if they could have been in any more, and be put in any more gamers' good grace, but they find a way to do it by saying, hey folks, guess what, when this comes out in September, you buy it, don't worry, because the Series X version, we got you covered, and it's not going to cost you a dime. How important do you think that is for both Microsoft and CD Projekt Red?
I mean, honestly, I think it explains itself, really. I mean, when it comes to, think of it this way: we are at a position in the gaming industry now where we are surprised that, you know, this isn't, that we were surprised that it's even happening in the first place. That's how bad things have really gone with certain publishers. We like Noof's already named one of them off, but EA and Activision would
Whore masters.
Yeah, they definitely are, you know. And I think that's, for first and foremost, I think it's just, it really is sad that, you know, we're surprised and happy that this is even a thing, because again, that speaks volumes of how some of these publishers will take advantage of milking the consumer over and over again, to get every last dime out of them. But it is incredibly important for the future of next generation, because it does put other people on notice, not just Sony, but just developers in general. If CD Projekt Red is doing it, a lot of people in this industry, you know, for better or for worse, trust in CDPR. And a lot of what they do has a trickle effect down into other developers, and it's going to be one of those things where if a developer is not doing that, people will kind of start to side-eye it and be like, wait, well, these guys are doing that. Why are you charging us for it? You know, so I do expect there to be some backlash when it comes to that. I know some developers might slip through the cracks. I think Sony could be one of those where, again, like you've said before, it's so difficult to gauge next generation with, how upgrades and stuff are going to work for certain games. Not upgrades, but, you know, charging for like remasters and whatnot, you know, coming out with another version of a game. Like State of Decay 2 is going to have another game coming out next month. It's not really another game, but it's
the Behemoth edition, I think it's called.
Yeah,
right?
So like when you look at CD Projekt Red, and again, like them saying no, we're not going to do this, for next generation, if you bought a game, you should already have the version of that game and so on and so forth, with all of the bells and whistles, because it's just going to be there for that version. I would expect Bethesda, I hope Bethesda does it. I hope Sony does it. I hope, obviously Microsoft has already said all the first party games are going to be, good and golden. It's just going to put more pressure on the other developers out there. And like I said before, if some don't do it, it puts more eyes on them, and people will start asking the questions of, well, why you when other people aren't? But outside of that, I am absolutely excited for Cyberpunk 2077. I've been watching the show. For a lot of people that know me, know that I love dystopian futures. I don't know what it is with this setting. I just like worlds that are all messed up and gloomy, and people have to fight for their lives. I really love that in video games and in entertainment. And I've been watching a show called Altered Carbon, which is the
second season just dropped.
Yeah, I'm so excited to start watching that after the show, and it's all really excited for this game. So, kudos to CD Projekt Red for, speaking up about this stuff. It's definitely going to put other developers on watch.
No doubt about that. But listen, let me just say this. First of all, we had over 430 people watching. That's a big deal. I am still really taken aback by the unbelievable support. Lots of new people in the chat. Lots of new subscribers to the channels. I can't thank you enough for that. And as we close out today's show, I want to thank the chat, but I have to specifically talk about a few people in the chat. Lethal Papa, who is a moderator, along with the Indie Gamer, and a few others, keep the chat going and moving in a way that's fun, that's safe, that's non-toxic, and keeps the trolls away. Now, to be honest, we already have a great chat. For the most part, the trolls kind of stay away because I like to push the positivity of gaming, which I think everyone should. But I wanted to shout those two gentlemen out because without them, they definitely, because the chat moves so fast, sometimes I miss things. And they're right there backing me up. So thank you for that. And of course, I have to thank the absolutely ridiculous generosity of of course the chat with the super chats. It is greatly appreciated, whether it's $1 or $10. Trust me when I tell you, it really does move me that people find the content that interesting that they're willing to donate to the channel. So thank you for that. And of course, I could not even have a show if I didn't have a panel to talk about games with. And of course, I want to get into the outros. Noof Nukem, obviously, you are not only a very vocal and very popular community member, but you are one that plays games. You actually play games, shockingly enough, and you are always out there on social media telling people when you're going to play so you can partner up and have new adventures online with new people. And I love that about you. But you also have an incredible YouTube channel, and you have a show that I want you to talk about because you do have a co-host that's lovely. She is definitely someone that people need to follow. And why don't you tell us where people can follow you on social media, but also check out your incredible YouTube channel?
Well, thanks for that, Boom. First of all, I want to say it's an honor to be here, and it's definitely an honor to be with Jamie Moran and Hyena Dan on this fantastic podcast today. Like some great topics, awesome opinions, fantastic chat. I do play games, guys, but I'm not a big achievement whore. So, if you want to go and rake me over the coals because maybe my score is not as high as somebody else, then, be my guest. Have at it, man. Because I know some people are looking at my PlayStation score, and I know you brought this a while back too, Boom. Like, I've had multiple PlayStation accounts. So, I think at one point on my original account, I was probably up to level 12, but I don't sit there and platinum every game. I just, I couldn't be bothered. But either which way, I still play games. So I'm going to get off topic here, but I play games. I have fun. I love playing games with the community. I do a lot of multiplayer stuff. I switch in and out of different games. I just have a good time. You know what I mean? So, but I do have a channel. It's Noof Nukem, pretty simple. It's pretty much, you can find me everywhere, just pretty much Noof Nukem. I do have a podcast, and it is now on back to Tuesday nights, right after RTX. It is called Gaming After Dark. It is, it's a gaming podcast, not much on all the other podcasts, except it's generally me and my female co-host by the name of Primal Eve. And we talk about gaming topics, movies, pop culture, trends, different things. But kind of sometimes we do it with a little bit of an adult edge or flair. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. Let's just say, don't watch it with your kids, Andy, okay? That sort of thing. But outside of that, if you don't mind a little bit of adult humor and going off the rails a little bit from time to time, I think it's a podcast. You definitely should check it out. A fantastic turnout today again, Boom, and rightfully so. So again, thanks for having me here. It's been an honor and a pleasure. And until next time, I'll leave you with this. Guys, I just wanted to say, guys, it's fantastic to be here. I've been sitting in the background the whole time. I'm really disappointed Boom didn't put me on the spot and ask me a question. But I wanted to just tell you, you guys are awesome. This is an amazing podcast. Make sure you catch Boom tomorrow morning because he's got Breakfast with Boom with an awesome panel with lots of great topics. I'm always here to kick some ass and chew bubble gum. And right now, I'm all out of bubble gum. So let's do it and then get to the chopper and go see you next time.
Well, listen, thanks for coming on for a second, Noof, of course. And, of course, thank you, Arnold, for popping on, because even though you're not getting paid for today's, entry fee, I definitely appreciate you coming on and giving us your spiel. Listen, if you're not already subbed to Noof's channel, shame on you. He brings a different edge to gaming, and he is definitely one of the community's finest. So get out there, follow him. All of his links are in the show notes below. Jamie Moran, you along with Noob joined the 1000 Club in 2000. I believe it was 2000. Was it this year or was it the end of last year?
It was like the 24th of December or something.
Okay,
like
so
that.
last year you closed, you finally got that. And like I said, folks, you don't understand how important it is to hit that number, especially if you work hard and you've had your channel for a while. So a big shout out to the community that rallied around his channel and all the tweets I was putting out there. I said it publicly. I was going to carry him across that 1,000 line, and I'm glad everyone came out to support Jamie Moran. Jamie, listen, you have a great channel. You are also someone that is very active on social media, and you put out some really incredible tweets as well as interacting with the community. Do me a favor, dude. Tell everyone where they can follow you on social media, but also check out your very active YouTube channel.
Yeah, cheers, Boom. It's been a good show today, and getting past 1,000 subscribers on YouTube took a while because I had so many breaks. But for the past 6 months now, I've gotten back to regular content, and now I'm going to do more content per week. Now I just need to get the watch hours up, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, I have plenty of interactions with people on Twitter. As long as people are respectful, I'm always willing to talk to people. And my Twitter's been popping off lately because of all this new next gen stuff. My Twitter's JamieMan UK. Follow me if you want jokes and gaming stuff. And my YouTube is The Elusive Gamer, where I talk about Xbox stuff without being fanboyish. So
yeah, no, you definitely put it out there, and you always come at a situation, I think, very fairly. Real quick, the Basement Radio Arcade Podcast, another amazing show. They had a fantastic show last evening. Enrique, who's a very good friend of mine, drops a $2 super chat, and he says this: PC Master Race for the win, of course. And he says Microsoft and Unity just pulled out of GDC, and them pulling out of GDC kind of really, I think, pushes the envelope to me banging this April event drum. I don't think they need so much GDC if they're going to do a reveal event on the Microsoft campus where they're going to invite people from the press within the country and, of course, maybe unveil the Series S and talk more about the Series X, which I'd like them to do before E3. But getting back to our panel, Hyena Den, first of all, dude, you, my friend, completely knocked me off of my chair with your outstanding, unbelievable technical knowledge. So thank you for taking the time and really breaking it down for Neanderthals like me, who only know how to hit the on button of his console. I really super appreciate that. But also, you have an incredible YouTube channel, and your knowledge of Forza is really second to none. Do me a favor, dude. Tell everyone where they can follow you on social media, but more importantly, check out your YouTube channel.
Well, absolutely. I would like to start off by saying today was a very awesome show with everybody on the panel. When it comes to the tech stuff, I'm learning every single day as I can through great people in this community. And there's definitely a lot of other Xbox guys out there that know a heck of a ton more than I do when it comes to this stuff. Like I said before, I'm learning every single day. The stuff I do for my YouTube channel, I like making all the art for myself whenever I can. A lot of it takes a ton of work, but I enjoy what I do. It's not just Forza stuff. It's we cover a lot of Game Pass stuff because I really like the stuff in Game Pass. If I find a game in there that not many people are talking about, I like to share a little spotlight on it. A lot of cool little stuff like that. But if people want to follow me on Twitter, where I usually post memes and random funny pictures about animals, my Twitter is HyenaDenXBL. And if you want to check out my YouTube channel, where I just uploaded a video of Forza, shocker there, talking about some really great stuff with variable rate shading and ray tracing coming up in the next game. My YouTube channel is Hyena Space Den, and if you want to party up on Xbox Live and play some games, my Xbox Live gamer tag is Hyena Space Den as well. I'm actually working on the last 2 achievements for Void Bastards, and they are both a doozy. And what I mean by that is, one of them's playing on the hardest difficulty, and the other is playing on the hardest difficulty without a single death. So I might not be alive tomorrow. I'll be completely honest with everybody. But I'm definitely working on that. I'm really excited to complete this game. I love it to death. So yeah, that's where you guys can find me.
Well, listen, dude, thank you again for being here. Of course, thanks the entire panel for being here. And as we close out today's incredible Xbox show, I want to say this. First of all, 2 things that my pop taught me when I was a kid that I think that more people need to do is simply treat others how you want to be treated. And also, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules, and I can guarantee you're going to have an awesome day. Take care, everyone, and we will see you next week on the newest episode of the Xbox Factor podcast. Have a great week and enjoy your weekend.